The confetti hadn't even settled when the debate exploded, because while Seattle lifted the trophy and celebrated one of the most dominant championship performances in recent memory, a different storyline was already taking over the football world, and it didn't involve a single touchdown, tackle, or blown coverage. Instead, the loudest voice after the game came from an unexpected corner, questioning whether the outcome had been influenced long before kickoff ever happened. And that claim lit a firestorm across fans, analysts, and former players who suddenly began re-examining everything they thought they knew about championship preparation and competitive fairness in the biggest game of the year. Within hours of the final whistle, discussions shifted away from Seattle's execution and toward a controversial argument that the playing field may not have been as level as it appeared, because Dave Portnoy took to social media and delivered a blunt assessment that instantly went viral, arguing that the West Coast location created a massive advantage that the Patriots simply couldn't overcome, and his comments struck a nerve with viewers who had never considered how geography, travel fatigue, and time zones might quietly shape the outcome of games that are supposed to represent the purest form of competition in professional football. Before diving deeper into the controversy, it's important to understand just how dominant Seattle looked from the opening drive, because they entered the game confident, focused, and seemingly unaffected by the pressure that normally overwhelms even the most experienced teams on the biggest stage, while New England appeared a step slower than usual, struggling to find rhythm early and chasing momentum throughout the contest, which led many fans to wonder whether something beyond strategy or talent might have played a subtle role in how the two teams showed up mentally and physically on game day. That's where the conversation turned sharply toward logistics, because the difference in travel demands between the two teams was impossible to ignore once fans started breaking down the numbers, with Seattle making a relatively short flight that kept them within the same time zone and allowed players to maintain familiar routines, while New England endured a cross-country journey that stretched across multiple time zones and forced athletes to adjust their sleep cycles, eating habits, and internal clocks just days before facing the most intense competition of their entire season. Portnoy's viral clip fueled the debate even further when he described his own experience traveling west for the event, admitting that he felt completely disoriented after arriving and claiming that the Patriots must have been dealing with the same physical and mental exhaustion, which led him to question whether the league unintentionally gives certain teams a built-in edge when championship games consistently take place on the same side of the country, and his blunt delivery transformed what could have been a quiet logistical discussion into a heated national conversation. Suddenly, fans were revisiting every moment of the game through a new lens, analyzing missed tackles, slow reactions, and uncharacteristic mistakes from the Patriots as potential signs of fatigue rather than simple execution errors, while Seattle supporters pushed back strongly against the narrative, arguing that preparation, discipline, and superior strategy were the real factors behind the victory, and that any attempt to attribute the result to travel schedules diminished the incredible performance that Seattle delivered on the field from start to finish. The debate only intensified as former players began weighing in with their own experiences traveling across the country for major games, with some acknowledging that adjusting to a 3-hour time difference can disrupt sleep patterns and focus, while others insisted that professional athletes are trained to handle travel stress and that championship contenders must be ready to perform under any circumstances, which turned the controversy into a larger philosophical question about whether the league should consider geographic fairness when selecting future venues. Meanwhile, inside the Seattle locker room, players focused on celebrating a season defined by resilience and preparation, emphasizing that they arrived early, followed strict routines, and treated every day leading up to the game with championship-level intensity, and several veterans openly rejected the idea that travel advantages played any meaningful role, insisting that their performance was the result of months of hard work, rather than a 2-hour flight difference that critics were now using to explain away a decisive victory. On the Patriots side, however, subtle hints began emerging that the travel schedule had been more challenging than many fans realized, with players quietly acknowledging that adjusting to West Coast timing required early mornings, late practices, and constant schedule modifications. And although no one publicly blamed the loss on logistics, the conversation around fatigue gained credibility as insiders described how difficult it can be to maintain peak physical condition when routines are disrupted during the most critical week of the season. As the story gained traction, Analysts started examining historical trends to see whether West Coast teams truly hold an advantage when the championship is played closer to their home territory, uncovering intriguing patterns that showed mixed results but enough evidence to spark deeper debate about fairness and scheduling, which kept fans glued to their screens as new statistics, travel comparisons, and expert opinions flooded social media feeds and sports talk shows across the country. The most fascinating element of the controversy wasn't simply whether travel affected one game, but how it revealed a broader tension between tradition and competitive balance, because the championship is often hosted in warm-weather destinations or major coastal cities that offer ideal conditions for fans and media coverage. Yet those same choices may inadvertently benefit certain teams depending on where they are based, creating an uncomfortable question about whether the league should prioritize entertainment value or strict competitive neutrality. While critics argued that athletes should be capable of overcoming any travel challenge, sports scientists joined the discussion to explain how circadian rhythms influence reaction time, endurance, and cognitive performance, highlighting research suggesting that even minor sleep disruptions can reduce athletic efficiency, which gave Portnoy's argument unexpected scientific backing and turned what began as a viral rant into a more nuanced conversation about the hidden variables that shape outcomes in high-pressure environments. At the same time, Seattle's fans rallied around their team with pride, pointing to flawless execution, disciplined play calling, and relentless defense as the real reasons behind the championship victory, emphasizing that preparation is itself a competitive skill and that the Seahawks simply did a better job managing every aspect of the week leading up to the game, including travel logistics, media obligations, and recovery routines that allowed them to perform at peak levels when it mattered most. The Patriots supporters, however, continued debating whether the league's venue choices inadvertently create unequal preparation windows, arguing that while travel alone doesn't determine winners, it can amplify small differences between evenly matched teams, especially when players are already dealing with the emotional pressure and physical exhaustion that come with reaching the championship stage, which made the conversation resonate far beyond a single game and into the future of league planning. Behind the scenes, league officials remained largely silent as the debate escalated, but insiders suggested that discussions about competitive fairness are always ongoing and that scheduling decisions involve balancing weather conditions, stadium availability, broadcast demands, and economic impact on host cities, reminding fans that the championship is not only a sporting event, but also a massive cultural spectacle that requires logistical compromises long before the participating teams are even known. Despite the controversy, one undeniable truth remained clear, because Seattle's performance on the field showcased a level of cohesion and confidence that set them apart from their opponents, with players executing plays with precision and maintaining composure even when momentum shifted briefly. And that consistency reflected months of disciplined preparation that no travel debate could erase from the historical record of their championship run. Still, the psychological impact of Portnoy's comments continued to ripple through the football community, sparking intense arguments on talk shows, podcasts, and online forums where fans dissected every detail from flight durations to practice schedules, demonstrating how a single viral statement can reshape public perception of a game that had already been decided, and showing how narratives in modern sports often evolve long after the final score is recorded. As days passed, former coaches joined the discussion with unique perspectives, explaining that travel preparation has become a science of its own, with teams employing sleep specialists, nutritionists, and performance coaches to minimize the effects of long-distance travel. And some experts argued that the Patriots' challenges may have reflected strategic planning choices rather than unavoidable disadvantages, adding another layer of complexity to a debate that refused to fade away. The controversy also reignited discussions about whether neutral site championships truly provide neutral conditions, with fans questioning if true fairness would require rotating venues evenly between regions or even selecting host cities only after playoff results are finalized. Although critics quickly pointed out that such changes would create massive logistical challenges and disrupt the long-term planning that allows cities to prepare for one of the largest sporting events in the world. Meanwhile, Seattle's championship parade drew massive crowds celebrating not only the victory, but also the resilience and unity displayed throughout the season. And players repeatedly emphasized that their focus remained on preparation, execution, and belief in one another. choosing to avoid engaging directly with the travel controversy while allowing their performance to stand as the ultimate response to critics who attempted to frame the win as anything less than fully earned. In New England, reflections on the loss gradually shifted toward off-season adjustments, roster improvements, and lessons learned from a challenging championship week that tested the team's adaptability and resilience, with players acknowledging that every aspect of preparation must be refined if they hope to return to the biggest stage, which transformed the disappointment into motivation rather than lingering frustration over factors beyond their immediate control. The debate ultimately evolved into something bigger than one game or one comment, because it forced fans to confront the complex reality that championships are influenced by countless variables beyond the obvious statistics and highlight reels, reminding everyone that preparation begins long before kickoff, and that the smallest details, from travel schedules to sleep routines, can shape outcomes in ways that are rarely visible to the average viewer watching from home. And now the biggest question moves to you, because this controversy isn't fading anytime soon, and the football world remains divided between those who believe Seattle simply outplayed their opponent, and those who think location and travel created a subtle but undeniable advantage that deserves serious consideration moving forward. So drop your thoughts below, and tell us whether the league needs to rethink how it chooses championship venues, or if this debate is just another excuse that distracts from the reality that on the biggest stage, the better prepared team usually walks away with the trophy.